Okay, so I'm here to give a quick demo of Puppet and what it can do for us here at Cengage. Puppet is a client-server setup, which means there's an agent that runs on each workstation, and there is a server component as well. So to start with the server, of course, installing the Puppet software, it generally goes into etc Puppet. Within there, several directories we'll get into later. Most important is manifests and a subdirectory I created called classes. Each action within Puppet is a class. So to see what I have here, you can see here's the list of examples I have. For example, let's look at Puppet Simple. Here's the class Puppet Simple. You can see the class name. Here's the file we're talking about. This is the one to take action on. I want to ensure the owner is root and the group is admin, and the mode is 755, which means owner, read, write, and read only for group and other plus executable. Here's the content of that file. This is what it should be. So you can see that it's a basic shell script. \n is new line. So Puppet agent, one time, no demonize, verbose, $1 just in case I want to give it arguments in the future, but not necessarily an end with a new line, of course. You can also see that I said user local, ensure that it directory, meaning ensure that it exists, and user local sbin, make sure that directory exists. Previously the file wasn't there, so at this point that's no longer needed. But yet I never changed it. So why don't I do that? And I'll do it later. So anyways, when this class is executed on a workstation, it's going to make sure these directories exist, and it's going to make sure this file is here. So when I go over to a machine over here, for example, I can user sbin. Here's the file, and if I shown, we're going to say 502 sbin puppet, and you can see it's user 502. So now when I execute the Puppet command, which makes the client run, copy, paste, go, the Puppet client is going to run. It's going to look at that file. We'll talk about these things in a minute. And you can see, notice, Puppet symbol owner changed 502 to root, because that's what the instruction manual said to do here. The reason I put a Puppet Simple in there with the command to run is that instead of typing this long string to execute Puppet, I can just type Puppet Simple and have Puppet run on the client. It's just a little bit easier for me instead of typing out that full thing. And I can make sure that it's on every client. So what gets executed on each machines? You can take a look here. You saw I had a list of classes. I'll go into more of these. Well, let's take a look at a couple of them now. You can see examples. Usage policy. For example, file policybanner.rtfd. Here's the path that the file should go in. Ensure it's a directory that exists. File pasted graphic. Here's the path. Here's the source. So if the machine, remember the last one said content, Puppet Simple said content, make sure it's this. Instead of content, I'm using source this time. So get this file, policy banner rtfd pasted graphic to TIFF, get it from the Puppet server in the files directory if it does not exist. Set the owner, set the group, and set the mode. Same thing for the text of that file, text.rtf. Ensure there's a file, make sure it's here, and if you don't have it, get it from here. I could have put the content of that file, but it's a bit longer, so let's get it from somewhere else. So then what I did is I took the file, and you can see policyban.rtfd as this is a directory, and there's pasted graphic to TIFF and text.rtf. So there it is. That's rich text, which is why it looks a little bit crazy here. So anyways, what I'm doing in this case is a sample policy usage. Manifest classes more usage policy. Let's go back to the class. So on a Mac, if in the library security directory is policy banner.rtfd with this contents, when you log into the machine, it will have you accept a computer usage policy, and the user has to click accept before they can get to the login prompt. It's a way for corporations, school labs, or any other organization to have a computer usage policy and ensure that everyone accepts it before moving on. So I'm just making use of Apple's policy banner functionality in this point. The other thing I had, for example, let's look at, so that was contents, and that was getting the file. So here we're going to say, for example, link settings. Here's another class. In this case, file, Microsoft registration DBP list. This is the path where to find it on the computer. Ensure it's a file, meaning ensure it exists as a file. Get it from here if you don't have it. There is a comparison done, so if the file is different than this one, then get a new copy of it. So this case will always make sure that that file remains the same. If the user edits the file, the next time Puppet runs, it'll be put back to how it should be according to this file right here in the files directory on the server. And again, set the owner, group, and the mode on that file. So yes, every time Puppet runs, it will set the file, it will perform all of these actions, and it will only take action on things that are different than they should be. Let's see if there's anything else to show you. Sure, we'll show you a few more. Network domain list. So here's another class. You can see this is an execute command. Here's the class name, network domain list. Execute, this is a name for the class within it, a name for the execute statement. Here's the command, user bin network setup, get search domains Ethernet corp local. Or I'm sorry, this is set. And here it is get, only if. So basically what it's doing is it's executing this command, network setup, get search domains, search for local, and search, grep v means opposite, corp local. So it's basically looking to see if local is set as a search domain on the machine, local without the corp. We found in some of our experience here that if a search domain is called local, there may be problems accessing server resources, so we want to get that out of there. So in this case, it's going to look for that. If it finds local by itself, it's going to execute this command. So I'm running this on the Ethernet interface and on airport interface. I could do it again for an Ethernet 2, just in case somebody's got another Mac Pro Tower or something with a second Ethernet port. To run it again, and there may be a way to run it on all interfaces at once that I haven't found. So this is an example of an execute command, executing this command only if this returns something. If this command returns nothing, then it won't do this at all. So in this case, this command is run every half hour or so whenever Puppet is run. Okay, one other one, let's take a look at monkey install. Here's an example of installing a package. Here's a class, it's called monkey install. Notice means make an entry in log file. Here is the package name, a name for this little project. Ensure that it's installed. Provider means who Puppet should give the task of finishing this job. So this goes to a tool called package.dmg, which is part of the whole Puppet installation. And the source is, here's where to get the file if you don't have it. Of course, we could host it on one of our own servers, but I thought this would be more fun just to point right to Google Code. So what this is saying is see if it's installed. If it's not, get it from here and install it. How does it know that it's installed? It touches a file in var.db, and it's called .puppet in this name here. So it's going to look for that file to see if it's installed, not looking to see if the monkey tools are there, only if the installer has run. So if somebody deletes the monkey tools but leaves the touch file there, the package will not be reinstalled automatically. If I wanted to make sure that they were always there, I would have to do something similar to the content or source as in a previous one, for example, the link settings, and putting each monkey component up on the server here and say ensure that it exists, ensure that this is what it is, and then have it copied down. This is simply downloading a DMG and running a package installer on it. What happens is the package DMG runs any .pkg file or mpkg file that it finds on the DMG once it's downloaded. So those are our classes. How does Puppet know what to execute? That happens with the site file. So in manifests is site.pp, and a little bit big here, but what it's saying is include classes.pp. That means include all of those other classes that I wrote in that other classes directory, star.pp. We'll get into this top section in a little bit. So for example, here's a node, Modbus Thule M2, or better yet, node Modbus THVM1. That is this machine right here. So I'm saying include network domain list, Puppet desktop demo, and monkey install. Include those. And when it runs, it's going to execute each one of those. So let's play with this for a minute. Let's take a look at, I'm going to, monkey was just installed because that's how it ran when I ran it a minute ago. So I'm going to go ahead and remove, well, let's see which, and remove monkey, so it's gone. But I said it doesn't execute the installer again if the item is not there, only the touch file. What is the touch file? Well, that's in var.db. There's a file called .puppet package DMG installed, and then the name of the package. So this is how Puppet knows if it's been installed already. So I would have to remove this file. Now it won't see that file and it would do it again. Or if I wanted to force this installer to go on a whole bunch of machines, I would simply increment this version number, the 0, let's make this a 1. And it'll treat it as if it's a new installer and run it again. So in this case, so anyways, before I run that again, you can see there is no more monkey import command because monkey's been removed. What is this Puppet desktop demo? Let's take a look. More classes, Puppet desktop demo. Here's this class. Here's the class name. It has to match the name right here. File, this is what I'm looking at on the client side. Users, administrator, desktop. Owner is root, group is admin, mode 777. Content, notice all employees must wash hands. So here's the contents of that file. And there it is right here on this machine. And it's what was the mode? 777. Everyone has write access to it. So if I go to this file, I should be able to open it and edit it. Opening. Sorry, grammar gets me. So I made an edit to that file. Quit. And if I open that up again, am I going to see that? There it is. Yes, I did. I made an edit. So now when I go to run my Puppet command again, Puppet's going to, oh, it's reinstalling monkey. Don't forget, because I deleted that touch file. And it's going to change this file back to how it was. Okay, here's my notices. README, content changed, so it put the content back. Oh, owner changed, admin back to root. Remember, the owner changed when I edited it. So now when I open this file again, it should be back to how it was. That's right. Todd's edits are gone. Oops. Cancel, sorry. I can't use command keys through VMware here. I keep getting confused. Anyways, and as for monkey, I should have the monkey import tool again. Yes, I do, because that touch file var.db period puppet package DMG it was removed. So it ran the monkey installer again. So there's how to run some installers on machine, but how do we get some variety to it? I want to make sure I'm not interrupted later. Anyways, let's look back at that site file again. There's a lot of fun stuff we can do in here. So here we go. And there's a function called factor, which is part of Puppet. Factor is facts about a machine. So I'm going to do factor pipe more. And let's see what's on the machine. For example, architecture, domain, factor version, fully qualified domain name. There's the domain name of this machine. The IP address of the machine, now you know. Build version 10.9. Memory size, megabytes, total memory on the machine, and so forth. So we can get lots of good information. SP stands for System Profiler. This is Mac specific information. ROM version, processor speed. This stuff all comes from System Profiler. Mac name, number of processors. I think serial numbers in here too. Yep, there's a serial number. Of course, it's VMware, so you're getting a VM serial number. Uptime. Virtual VMware. Yep, you know it's a VMware. Swap free. Swap encrypted? Yes, it is. In the old days, swap files were not encrypted. Minor security hole. Anyways, so these are factors. So, for example, I can go into this. Let's do, if the product name is Mac OS X, and if I do factor pipe more, can I find product? What was it called? Mac OS X product name. Here it is right here. Mac OS X. Then do these things. So Factor is totally cross-platform. It is Windows, Mac, Unix. Oh, sorry, somebody's drilling or construction. So we can run this on Windows machines as well as Macs. And that thing that said include this file, change that file, add this content to it, that's handled by the client. So Puppet generalizes the information to only say include this information, make the contents of this file. You could say make sure a package is installed, or the permissions are as such, and the client machine would know how to interpret that information. So here I say, oh, we'll leave that one alone for a minute. So these things would happen on all Macs. Include Puppet Simple, LaunchD. I do have a class called LaunchD so that it runs at startup. Library, LaunchD, com, Cengage, Puppet plist. So here's my LaunchD to make sure that Puppet runs every half hour. So I want Puppet to make sure that that LaunchD exists. If it doesn't, it's going to install the LaunchD and then kick launch control so it gets it going. Here are the specific nodes. So if the node is this or the node is that, do these things. I could also say node default. If one of these nodes doesn't exist, then do the default. And of course, as you saw, the product name Mac OS X, or down here, Cengage Department CLTS. What is this? Well, Factor, you can add your own facts to Factor. So instead of just saying machine name, product name, we can come up with our own information. For example, what is the department of the machine? That might be useful. So we could say MindTap. If it's a MindTap machine, we want to make sure this package is installed or this setting is done. Or maybe it's not a MindTap machine, so we want to lock these things. We can create our own categories. So what I did on the Mac, well, let's take a look here at the class. What's the best factors? I guess we'll look at it that way first. On the server, I got it in modules. Cengage is our modules. Lib factor. Here's one called get department. Let's look at that one first. Here's an example of a home-built fact. Factor add, name of it, do, and the code is execute default read library preferences Cengage Puppet department. So I have a plist in library preferences with a key in there called department with the department name in it. So if I look at my client machine, default read library preferences com Cengage plist, here it is. Department. I forgot patched was a typo. That should have been gone. Defaults. Well, I'll do it later. So anyways, I can change the department simply by changing that. Here's another one. Get patches equals true. So you can see if I go into more get defaults read get patches. What does that mean? Well, the idea is that we could say true or false if a machine should get patches. For example, a new version of Java comes out. We want to push it to all of our machines. Should the machine get it? Maybe in general it will, but perhaps the machine is some type of server, has some other function, and we don't want to push any updates to the machine. We can simply rely on this key to say if it should be included. Then when I go to Puppet manifests, I can say if Cengage patches equals true, include this domain, or I could say include one called Java update, whatever the name of the class is, only if get patches is true. This way we can make sure we're only including machines that we do intend to include by using it on the machine. How do we set it? Well, on the Mac you can use the default write command, library preferences, Cengage puppet, and I can say department equal Todd group, whatever it is you want to call it. The alternative is I wrote a little GUI application in about 30 seconds which allows it to set the department. We'll call it CLTS. Accept patches, yes or no? I'll say yes. Save my debugging code. Settings saved. There it is. So that just executed the default write command for me. So you can see we can create a simple GUI tool that sets that plist. The factor will read that plist in, and then we can define our classes and our functions based on the settings in that plist. So great. Now we have all of this information. Now what do we do with it? Well, let's take a look at, let me get Safari up here. Where is Safari? I don't know where it went. Okay, I'm going to do Modbus Puppet 02. Here's a web interface to our Puppet information. You can see each one of my nodes. Here's THVM1. Blue means that it was changed recently. On the last run, at least, it was changed. Here's a little graph of each day, how many were changed, failed, executed. So you can see, here's this machine, VM1. Here's the reports, this last run, which was only a few moments ago during our demo. You can see, log, here's what happened. Owner changed from admin to root. Remember when we changed that? That was on the important README, and the content was changed. It pulled down the new content. Also worth noting, let's see if I go back to nodes, is inventory. You can see the department is I have listed here. CLTS, get patches, is true. So any information we save on the machine can be saved here. So we could even do a search on it in inventory. Well, let me go back for a second to make sure I get the exact spelling. Cengage get patches, inventory search. We're going to say fact name, Cengage get passes is true. And here's all the machines where it's true. I can also do a search on the amount of RAM is greater than this. Oh, here's one. Let me go back to nodes. We'll go look at my machine. Somebody wanted to know the drive type. As a virtual machine, it didn't have an answer, which is why that was blank. But Cengage drive medium, is it a solid state or is it rotational? Well, here it is right here, by simply writing another factor event to do that. In case you're curious to know what that factor looks like. No, that's not here. That is in Etsy Puppet. Classes are in modules, Cengage, drive medium. This is what that looks like to find out. Do this code. So basically there's the code to type at a command prompt to tell you if it's a solid state or if it is a rotational drive. So by creating that as a factor item, it now appears in the report and it can be used to define the criteria in our site.pp list. Puppet manifest. So I could say in here, if drive type is rotational, do this. So it gives us enormous flexibility on what it is we want to do with machines. Okay, that is it for this demo. I hope you got enough out of it for a brief introduction, and feel free to contact with questions. Take care.